Hey everyone, my name is Sarah, and I've been married for just over 6 months. I'm 27 now, and my husband, Kevin, is 31. Kevin works as a financial analyst in a big corporate office, and this story is about a huge mess he caused when he decided, without even asking me, to let his younger brother, Alex, move into our house. You see, Kevin and I had spent months planning our new home. Every detail from the layout to the furniture, and we poured $450,000 into it. It was supposed to be our dream home, just the two of us. But all that came crashing down when Kevin casually dropped the bomb. Oh, by the way, Alex is moving in with us. What? I was in shock. We had barely settled in, but Kevin didn't think it was a big deal. He's family, he said, and he needs a place to stay while he figures things out. It'll only be temporary. I wasn't convinced, but I tried to stay calm. Temporary? How long is temporary? I asked. Kevin just shrugged and said Alex would stay until he got back on his feet. At that point, I knew this wasn't going to end well. Fast forward a few days, and Alex arrived, late at night, mind you, dragging in all his stuff. As if that wasn't bad enough, when I showed him the guest room, Alex looked around and said, no, this isn't the room I want. Confused, I asked what he meant, and that's when he pointed to my office, a room I had specifically designed as my own space. This is perfect for me, Alex said, smiling like it was already his. I couldn't believe it. I stood my ground, telling Kevin, no way. This is my workspace, and it's off limits. Kevin hesitated and then suggested, why don't we just give him my hobby room instead? But when I pointed out that Alex could use the room next to it, Kevin freaked out. No, that's my gaming room. I picked out the custom wallpaper for it. Things just spiraled from there. Alex was furious, accusing me of being selfish and acting like I was the head of the household. He actually had the nerve to call me a freeloader, even though this was my house too. The nerve. I was beyond fed up. Later that evening, while I was in the kitchen, I heard Alex whining to Kevin about being hungry. Hey bro, we got any food? Sarah didn't make me anything. I ignored them, but Kevin came over, frustrated. Why do you always have to make things difficult? He asked, grabbing a beer. If you don't like it, maybe you should leave. That's when I had enough. I decided to call my brother, Nick. Nick's always had my back, and when I told him everything that had happened, he was furious. I'll be over there in 30 minutes, he said. When Nick arrived, Kevin and Alex suddenly got very quiet. Nick is 6 feet 4 inches and a former MMA fighter, so his presence can be pretty intimidating. Kevin tried to explain, but Nick wasn't having it. So, this is the house Sarah paid for, right? And you two think she's the one who should leave? Think again. Alex tried to pipe up, but Nick shut him down immediately. You don't pay rent, you don't clean, and you think you get to pick which room is yours? Get out. Kevin, realizing that he had messed up, tried to backpedal, saying, Wait, we can figure this out. But Nick wasn't playing around. No, he said firmly. Pack your things, both of you. Kevin tried to apologize, but by then, I had made up my mind. I told him I was done and wanted a divorce. Kevin looked stunned, but there was no going back for me. You let Alex come in and wreck our home. You chose him over me, and now I'm choosing to leave. Nick helped me pack up my things, and within a few hours, I was out of there. Kevin and Alex were left standing in the mess they had created, looking completely lost. As for me, I moved into my brother's guest house for a while, focusing on rebuilding my life. Kevin and Alex eventually had a massive falling out over money and living arrangements, and Kevin ended up living back with his parents. Funny how things turn out, right? Now I'm in a much better place, and I'm finally living the life I deserve. So, if there's a lesson here, it's to never let anyone, even family, take over your life or your space. Stand your ground and know your worth. Molly's life spiraled further after she was kicked out. With nowhere to go, she drifted from one friend's couch to another. Each stay shorter than the last. She found herself unable to hold down a job and soon burned through any goodwill she had left. Her arrogance had once been tolerated, but now, without a place to call her own, even her friends grew tired of her demands. Desperate, she decided to reach out to John again, hoping he might take pity on her, but when she arrived at his parents' house, the door remained shut. John had remarried, and his new wife was having none of Molly's antics. "She's your sister, but she's not my responsibility," she told him when Molly first showed up, pleading for help. Reluctantly, John gave Molly some money to get by, but it wasn't long before even that ran out. Molly was left on the streets, clutching her phone, scrolling through her contacts, realizing she had no one left to call. Meanwhile, Anne's life was slowly rebuilding. With John and Molly out of her life, she focused on her career. Working at her brother's company proved to be just what she needed, both the job and the emotional support. Her brother had finalized his divorce and was raising his children alone, and the two of them leaned on each other, becoming closer than they had been in years. One evening, Anne was relaxing in her new apartment when she received an unexpected call. It was John. For a brief moment, her heart raced. Old memories flooded back, but she quickly reminded herself of everything he had put her through. Hesitating for a second, she finally answered, "And I need to talk." John's voice was subdued, nothing like the arrogant man she once knew. "What is there to talk about?" Anne replied, her tone cold but controlled. "She's in trouble. I don't know what to do. She's been kicked out, and our parents won't take her back. She's living on the streets, and she asked about you, wondering if maybe you'd let her come stay with you, even just for a little while." Anne laughed bitterly. "Are you serious? After everything she put me through, you think I'd take her in?" "John, I barely recovered from the damage you two caused." I know, he stammered. "But she's my sister. She's family. I don't know where else to turn." "John, you should have thought about that before you let her destroy everything. Molly never cared about me or our marriage. I tried to reason with her, but she made my life a living hell. And now you want me to save her?" There was silence on the other end of the line, and could hear John sigh, a mix of regret and defeat. "Look, I get it. I do," he said finally. "But if you can find it in your heart to forgive her, maybe just look you here," and interrupted, her voice rising. "John, it's not about forgiveness. It's about moving on. I've rebuilt my life without you or Molly. I'm finally happy, and you want to drag me back into that mess?" John didn't respond for a while. Then, quietly, he said, "I'm sorry, Anne, for everything." It was the first time he had ever apologized to her. For a moment, she almost softened, but then she remembered all the nights she cried alone, the humiliation, the betrayal. "Goodbye, John," she said firmly, and hung up, and sat for a while, staring at her phone, wondering if she had made the right decision. But deep down, she knew she had. Her future didn't involve John or Molly. She had finally broken free from them. As the weeks passed, John's call became a distant memory, and focused on herself, spending time with her family, working hard, and even starting to date again. She met someone new, a kind, thoughtful man who made her feel appreciated in ways John never had. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and for the first time in a long while, and felt at peace. Meanwhile, Molly continued to wander from place to place, burning bridges wherever she went. She never did find stability. Molly's world crumbled further as the days turned into weeks. The money John had given her ran out quickly, and with no real direction or plan. She spiraled deeper into desperation. The friends she once relied on had moved on, and every door she knocked on now stayed firmly shut. Her once sharp and confident demeanor was replaced with a hollow, gaunt expression. Her arrogance had been a shield, but it had cracked, revealing the vulnerability she had always buried beneath. Living on the streets was a harsh reality Molly never imagined for herself. She slept in shelters when she could find space, and spent her days wandering aimlessly, searching for some kind of escape. Her pride had kept her from asking her parents for help. But now, it seemed they had long since washed their hands of her. One evening, Molly sat on a bench in a park, shivering as the cold wind whipped through the trees. She stared at the darkening sky, wondering how things had gone so wrong. A group of teenagers passed by, laughing and carefree, and she felt an unfamiliar pang in her chest. Envy for a life so unburdened, so different from her own. She thought about the role she had played in tearing apart her life. A part of Molly wanted to blame her still, to see herself as a victim, but the deeper truth gnawed at her. She knew, deep down, that she had pushed in too far. Her cruelty had been fueled by her own insecurities, and in trying to tear him down, she had only destroyed herself. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught her eye, an old friend from her past, someone she hadn't seen in years. His name was Ethan, a guy she had known back in college before life had taken them in different directions. He was walking his dog, looking well-kept and content, a stark contrast to her disheveled appearance. Before she could think, Molly stood up and called out to him. "Ethan?" Her voice cracked as she spoke. He stopped, turned toward her, and squinted as if trying to place her. His face softened as recognition dawned, but it was clear he was shocked by her appearance. "Molly? Wow, I didn't expect to see you here. It's been years." She tried to smile, but it felt forced. "Yeah, it has. How have you been?" "Good, really good," he said, but his eyes couldn't hide the concern he felt looking at her. "How about you?" Molly hesitated. Lying would have been easy, pretending that everything was fine, that her life hadn't fallen apart. But something in her stopped. She was tired of pretending, tired of carrying the weight of her mistakes alone. "Not great," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I've hit rock bottom, Ethan." Ethan's expression softened. "I'm sorry to hear that. Do you need help?" Molly looked down, ashamed of how far she had fallen. Asking for help wasn't something she was used to, but maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to start over. "I don't know," she said, her voice shaking. "I've messed up and I don't know how to fix it." Ethan nodded slowly, taking in her words. "Look, I don't know what's been going on in your life, but if you want to talk, I'm here. I know a place not far from here, a cafe where we can grab something warm and sit down." Molly nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't alone. As they walked toward the cafe, Ethan asked about her family, her job, her life. Molly found herself opening up more than she expected, telling him about the mess with John, the falling out with Anne, and how she had pushed everyone away. It was hard, but there was something cathartic in finally admitting her faults, in acknowledging that she had brought a lot of this on herself. Ethan listened without judgment, offering quiet words of support when she needed them. Over the next few weeks, he stayed in touch, checking in on her and helping her navigate resources to get back on her feet. With his help, Molly found a temporary place to stay and started looking for work again, though it wasn't easy. Every rejection felt like another weight added to the burden she carried. But slowly, Molly began to rebuild. It wasn't the glamorous life she once imagined for herself, but it was something real. She found part-time work at a local diner. And though it was far from the life she had before, she started to find a strange sense of peace in the routine. She was no longer trying to impress anyone or live up to impossible standards. She was simply trying to survive and maybe, in time, to heal. One day, after finishing a late shift, Molly sat in a quiet corner of the diner, staring out the window at the bustling street outside. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope, a small, fragile thing, but real nonetheless. She pulled out her phone and stared at Anne's number. It had been months since she had spoken to her, months since she had pushed her out of her life. With a deep breath, she typed out a message. "Hey, Anne, I know it's been a long time, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I've done a lot of thinking, and I realize how much I hurt you. I hope you're doing well." She hesitated before hitting send, unsure of what response, if any, she would get. But regardless of the outcome, Molly felt a strange sense of release. She had finally taken the first step toward making amends, not just with Anne, but with herself. As she left the diner and walked home, the air felt a little lighter. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Molly believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a future waiting for her after all.